missed me last week, right?
We did.
We had a week off, so you come back in full force. But obviously, bye weeks are unique. It's I think a little bit more unique when you have it in the third week of the season, when you really have had not one week that's really been structured. The first game was on a Thursday night, so your next week's a little bit different. Finally, after the second game, was our first time actually getting into a rhythm of coming in on Sunday, practicing a little bit, having the Monday off, being in school, and then doing your normal week, and then you go into a bye week. So, not saying it's not good. It gave us some opportunities maybe to get some guys a little bit healed up that have been banged up since camp. But I think that getting into a rhythm is really important. And I mean that not just playing the game with momentum, but also getting into a rhythm that you do weekly. About how you're taking care of your business, how you go on a Sunday, you go off on a Monday, and then you get into your Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday stuff. So it's been a little bit different. Obviously good. We got a chance as coaches to get away a little bit, recruit a little bit. Our players got an opportunity, really to have Friday, Saturday, and most of the day Sunday kind of away. And not that you're going to heal completely, hurt shoulder's still going to hurt a bit. But the idea of getting away mentally to clear your mind a little bit, have a little bit of time to relax, hopefully see family and friends and things like that, and then come back kind of rejuvenated with the idea that we got quite a run here in the next few weeks, some really, really good football teams. So opportunity for us now to get back into the swing of things of a normal Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so you can ask your questions. We can figure out in some way, some shape or form the guys that will practice on Tuesday. We don't always have that for you at times, but for our guys, for us as coaches, to get back into this routine, we're excited about.
Questions?
You've already talked about it a couple of times, but it seemed like penalties, you felt like that was the biggest issue that you looked at over the bye week.
It is, and I think in week, I have bye week in week 3, you obviously get to self-evaluate, and I mean that like self-scout yourself offensively, defensively, and special teams. With only 3 weeks, it's not as big of a self-scout. I mean, you don't have as much of things to kind of spend some time on, but you can obviously take a peek at yourself. And we knew that penalties have been an issue for us. And Sunday when we got back together, not this Sunday, but last Sunday when we got back together, we actually addressed and watched every penalty that we had as a team. And just try to categorize them and make us aware of the things that are happening to us. And some of those are on me. Some of those are delay games, I guess you'd say, in situations where we want to punt the ball and have a chance to give ourselves. So those ones aren't bad penalties, and even aggressive penalties at times. Obviously, nobody likes penalties, and I've said it a million times. Aggressive penalties are going to happen if you're an aggressive team, if you're an attacking team. The undisciplined ones, the ones that happen pre-snap, post-snap, things that really, that we got to make sure we do a better job of us. Where we've taken a peek at it and addressed it. And ultimately, you got to see it happen on Saturday.
In terms of offensive line play, what was the focus on that this week to kind of get that group maybe a little bit more cohesive and try to get things moving in the right direction there?
It's just work. It's just work. It's working together. It's time spent. I think that was really good for us in the bye week. You got guys that are dinged up, and you got guys that are nicked up. Kind of like through camp when you're trying to find the combination of guys. It's a unique position, and I mean that in a sense where we say we want to be able to play 22 guys on offense, or you're playing 8, 9 defensive linemen. The reality is, as you're getting really good as an offensive line, it makes it more difficult sometimes to roll. So, us trying to get that roll going with maybe Mets and Vinny and Ferg and some of those guys on the edges, where in the long run it can help you. I think in the short term it makes it more difficult on those guys. It makes it more difficult on the guards, on Coop and Morgan James, because they're not used to maybe having that guy that's consistently outside of them in their communications or work, are in sync. So, we've focused on that. There's some things we did, during the bye week, but it's an area where we know we got to continue to improve. We knew that going in that, we got 2 freshmen that are playing right now, and there was going to be some of those growing pains, but you can get through a lot of things based on effort and attitude, and that's where we got to make sure we get ourselves back to it. Understand there's going to be some mistakes. There are going to be some little things here and there, missteps, maybe a little bit of a communication, but our effort will overcome a lot of those things.
Was there anything kind of doing that self-scout that you were maybe pleasantly surprised by that you hadn't noticed in the moment through the first 3 games?
Yeah, there's things. I mean, obviously, and big plays and eliminating big plays, I think has been something. Our ability to play through mistakes, you're seeing those kinds of things for us. And even special teams wise, there's some really bright spots. Us giving some more guys some opportunities. We're a team that wants to play our starters on special teams and make a huge emphasis on it. And we're not going to change, but there are some guys that are showing up. That really kind of take that role and take it seriously. And there's going to be an opportunity for them to get more playing time offensively and defensively because of those special units and the effort and the attitude those guys have had on those units. So it's not as much of us looking at just structurally what have we done better, what haven't we done, or sometimes when you're self-scouting, you're looking at tendencies for things as opposed to, hey, what did we really do well? I look more at, hey, what kind of guys, how are guys playing, at, above or below their God-given abilities, and, even if it's on special teams. If you believe they're guys that are playing above their ability, because maybe they're young, we got to find some ways to give those guys some more opportunities.
Seems like Michael Pitts has really stepped up on the defensive line this year, made an impact.
Well, Mike was stepped up for us last year, so he's had it tough in the sense that he's been dinged up, so his ability to practice and continue to kind of make a cohesiveness up front there has been a little bit difficult. But thank goodness he's a junior, he's a fourth-year junior, who's very mature, so he's working at those things. Even though in the last 2 weeks he hadn't been able to practice a ton, just because of having a dinged up shoulder. But on game day, you're right, he has. He's done a great job for us. We continue to put more things on the plate. For him to have a guy like Ethan Tuckey, where the two of them, split a bunch of time, I think really, bodes well for us, and obviously bodes well for Mike, because they can play, 4 to 6, A to B as hard as they possibly can, knowing that they don't have to play 65, 70 snaps in a game.
Against Miami, you guys had a bit of a slow start in the first half. You go into a bye. We get to, preach urgency or preach starting quicker, especially when you're going.
We always do. There's some little things that we're trying to. I mean, again, I think for us, and some of those noon starts is a little bit difficult for us, and that's not an excuse. It's just notoriously right now we got to do a better job. And I also think that that's just confidence. I think settling in early in games, is really about having confidence. Sometimes, we got some guys and some new guys, and whether it's the offensive line or even guys in the back end, it's sometimes that first 2 series where you're seeing some new and different things. You got to be able to react and respond a little bit quicker. I think maybe that's where we see some of our youth, because every week, especially this week, off of Marshall having a bye, you're going to see some different and new things in the first 2 series, and how you react and respond to them. Really is how you start that first quarter.
With the bye week coming this early, was there a chance to get some guys maybe back on the field that we haven't seen since camp or early?
We hope so. We hope so. Today will be a big day to see. And there's a few guys that are still right there in the mix, whether it's Malik Moj and Arquan Bush and Jared Dokes, who's been out for a few weeks. Those guys are hoping that it could be probable. But we got to see it on Tuesday and Wednesday, because the last thing we want to do this long season is put guys out there that we're going to put themselves in harm's way, thinking about, hey, we just need this guy right now. Really, we need to make sure that they're going to be okay, they can perform and they can practice to put themselves out there to be able to play fast and be confident in what they're doing.
Does the short week next week, does that creep into that thought process at all with the injuries?
I don't want those guys thinking anything about that. That's a little bit on our plates as a coaching staff, but still right now on Tuesday we're focused in on one thing. We've got a schedule. We'll get to that after we get through and finish this one, but it's hard to start thinking about things in advance. I know that you got a plan, you put that plan all the way from the summertime, and then just kind of wait until that time comes. So it'll be different. Next week will be a unique situation, but we're trying, like I said, to get on some version of a schedule where our guys can get better into a rhythm. So you're right, they do feel more confident, especially those first couple series of a game they're ready to roll.
Having a few games and a little bit of a break, how do you feel first-year coaches Wilt and Brown have done early in the season?
Really, we evaluate our guys, our coaches, on their players. And it's not like we sit back here and say, hey, this guy's done a great job because his guy has 8 touchdowns, or they have 17 sacks or something like that. The reality is how's your unit playing together? How are those guys performing? And sometimes it's hard because I know that so maybe some guys expected to have more catches or more touchdowns. And then the reality is you just got to kind of break it down and say, hey, how are those guys working together? Are they having value on special teams? Is that unit strong? Is that their ability to play above their talent levels? And I think 3 weeks is not one time to show. I think we've done a really good job of it. Obviously, up front with subbing guys and have a good mix. I don't think maybe the wide receivers have had as many opportunities for guys like you to see them catch some balls and some touchdowns that maybe we thought they might have had. But there's a lot of other things that we're asking those guys to do that that add value to our to the offense, mainly blocking in some situations like that. But again, it's all about getting better, and I think that those guys are in a good place. They believe in what it is we're doing. I mean that as coaches. It's going to show up as we continue to go down the season.
Luke, every game you've played so far had just kind of a natural buzz storyline to it, whether it's UCLA, Ohio State, and then your rival Miami. This is the first one that doesn't have that kind of just natural buzz about it. What makes this game important to you guys?
Well, I mean, we got a stretch here that I would tell you the next 3 weeks. I'm not saying anything against. I can think like 3 weeks in a row. That's about it. For us, it's three of probably the more talented teams that we'll face the rest of the year. And I'm just saying strictly on talent alone. These 18 to 22ers don't need some buzz. They don't, maybe read all the stories and things like that. I think most importantly, like we said, like a rival, it's about respect. If they don't know anything about Marshall, all they got to do is pop on the film from 2 years ago. And if you need a storyline, take a look at that one, because we didn't do very well, and they put it to us. And I think for our guys to realize, what kind of atmosphere that they're going to walk into is a storyline in itself. Maybe there's not some connection that we can tie together in media to make something of it, hey, well, Coach Fick and Doc, or the history of UC and Marshall. You know what? I think the reality is, what we look at, especially me, is what's 18 to 22-year-olds, what are they thinking? And I just want to make sure that they understand, what kind of atmosphere they're going to walk into and what kind of team that they can expect. And it doesn't take much to take a peek at 2 years ago for those guys to create their own storyline, because that's what's important to us.
Well, was there anything you noticed 2 years ago that you can change or improve on going into
They had some really good athletes, and they probably across the board might have been better athletes around the field. So I don't know that there's any one thing that we can pick other than you better make sure you know what kind of team you're going to face. This is a team that's never going to be intimidated, especially at home. They're going to play their butts off. It's going to be an incredible electric atmosphere. Things from you watching from 2 years ago, they got a new defensive coordinator, they got a new offensive coordinator. But it's still the same team. The head coach has been there for 10 years, and that's why they've been so successful. So what you're going to see is really just looking at what kind of effort you're going to get, what kind of emphasis you're going to get. You're going to see their starters on special teams. You're going to see them make an impact in those areas. And to me, that's what you're, not specific plays, specific guys. I mean, there's still some guys that are offensive line-wise that are back from that year. But it's more about what kind of effort to expect, what kind of a culture and a crew to expect.
Did you see the news yesterday out of Houston about De'Aaron King redshirting and another wide
I think Cos came up to tell me something, and I might have actually got a little bit upset at you, Cos, and kind of said, what the heck, we talked about this? I apologize, but I don't, unfortunately, pay attention to a lot of the news.
Yeah, but we think of that redshirt rule for freshmen, maybe roster management that way on the bottom end of the roster, but do you guys think about that, or have older players, upperclassmen talk to you about it?
It's a great rule. It's a great rule for young guys, and maybe it's a great rule for older guys too. If a guy gets hurt, he's a senior and he gets hurt, he still has a chance to play 4 games. And still has an opportunity. I think for every team and every program, it's used in different ways. And maybe it's used for individuals to do what's best for themselves as well. And what the rules are in place for the student athletes, and I think most importantly for them. And however it's being used, I think within your programs is what's important to you.
How often do you get mad at Cos?
How often I get mad at Cos? Not as often, unless he's talking about something that's 2 weeks in advance or 3 weeks in advance. If it's within that week, then I'm good. Anything we start to bring up that's a couple weeks down the road, I don't usually handle as well.
Speaking of this week, how important is it to keep these guys focused and obligated to what's the UCF game that we got?
That's not something we got to worry about. I really don't believe that. If they don't, that's kind of what we're talking about. We don't need a storyline. All you got to do is pop on the film, you know. And we can always say that, you know, 18 to 22-year-olds need things to focus on. Well, that's our storyline. I don't worry about thinking ahead. You know, like you said, you ask about, hey, you got a different week the following because you plan for it. Haven't thought about it since the summer when we put a plan in place, and we won't think about it till maybe 8 o'clock on Saturday.
Looking at Marshall, what kind of challenges do they present? I know they got a big offensive line. They're good front seven defensively. What are you looking for from them in terms of what they bring?
They are a very, very good football team. I think it starts with their ability to run the football and their ability to stop the run. You know, and they're built that way. Up front, defensively, pretty darn good. You know, and they're going to mix some things up with how they insert safeties and make it difficult on you. You know, not just because they got maybe more hats than you can block, but you don't know where they're going to insert at. So they do a really good job there. And then offensively, you know, they've got talent. The offensive line is a veteran group, big, physical. Got a couple backs, but they were going to find a way to run the football, you know, and keep you honest with a lot of the athletes they have on the outside. So I think for them it starts really up front, and it starts running the football and stopping the run. And I think everything offensively builds off of that, and for them as well defensively. And, you know, it's a lot of who we want to be. We want to start with the guys up front, you know, O-line and D-line, and that's where I look in the mirror and I say, this is a kind of a good image of, you know, what it is that we want to continue to build. And I think that's why you look at what they've done, and Doc being there for, I think, 10 years, or this is 10th or 11th year. When you look at guys that have a program, I mean a program, not just, you know, guys that go up and down and guys take a job and they take off if they get an opportunity, but guys that build programs, you do it the right way. And I think that that's the one thing I stress to our guys, not a storyline, but pop on the special teams, pop on those, and take a peek at those guys up front, and you realize they've done a heck of a job.
Anyone asked you how to access Facebook Watch? Do you know much about it?
I'll be in Huntington for 5 o'clock on Saturday, so I don't think I'll have to worry about getting on Facebook Watch and figuring out how to do it. That's what I leave to cause to make sure everybody else knows how to work those things. So maybe you can call home for me and make sure if my wife and family can't figure it out, that they don't ask me.
Any other questions?
Thanks.
Thanks, Coach.